What is a kingdom without a dynasty? The great poet Robert Burns once said,
"A eunuch is a man who has had his work cut out for him."
Hello CK2 players, my name is AlzboHD, and in today's video, we will be undergoing quite possibly the most difficult challenge in the medieval world. Starting as the castrated eunuch of Galilee, I will attempt to sire children and continue the family name, no matter the cost. Now, as I'm sure many of you are aware, eunuchs cannot marry, engage in seduction, or even mount a horse. Any conventional method to breed is complicated by the fact that they have no seed, and no method of prostheses or natural medieval enhancement will bring back what is erased. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time we get started with the Castrated Eunuch Challenge. The year is 867 CE. Our unfortunate protagonist starts the game as a jaded 22-year-old incel. No maiden will marry him, let alone look at him, on account of his man-made deficiencies. As if being a gender-neutral count in a polygamous society isn't bad enough, poor Munir is a sickly and lethargic young man, literally 3 months into our campaign, and he's already fallen ill from the measles. Is there any hope for the Al-Muzaffar family? Is this challenge, this story, is it already over? Breaking news from the medical room. It turns out that everything is fine. The court doctor ordered our neutered hero to run naked outside and expose his scarred scabbard to the rest of the world. Munir is healthy, but we still have a problem. How is a eunuch going to be a father? For the next 9 years, Munir desperately sought out solutions to his predicament. He traveled across the land, searching far and wide, consulting with anyone who could help him find a power to heal his pride. The Arabian Caliph heard news of this sad tale, of a man who wanted only to start a family for himself, and granted Munir a royal audience. Caliph al-Mu'taz promised Munir that Allah will reward his patience. But patience, like aged cheese, can only last so long. Vicious rumors began to spread about Munir, torturing his soul day and night. One day, a foreign noble had the audacity to outright insult him to his face, asking if he had the balls to face him in combat. For the first time in his life, Munir felt outrage and cut the man down on the spot. Infuriated and desperate for solutions, the Emir of Galilee became vulnerable to suggestion. On one fateful night, the Duke of Austria paid visit and laid the seeds of hope in our young hero. Nothing would ever be the same again. "What if I told you that all you have been taught to believe is a lie?" the Austrian asked in pointed prose. "Allah lied to Adam in the Garden of Eden. Reject Allah and let Shaitan and Iblis guide your steps." Munir was eager for answers, for a solution to his problem. He quickly asked the Duke if Satan would be able to return his manhood, if Shaitan would grant him his seed. "If you offer yourself up to Satan, you will be granted powers Allah has kept from us humans." "Oh, and I think you'll enjoy it," replied the Duke. Hastily, the Duke passed the mark of Shaitan to the Emir and told him to wait for a sign. The sign came quickly. While Munir was busy jelqing in his bedroom chambers, a mysterious maiden approached. At last, a woman was paying interest to Munir. She asked him to join her in a ritual of power and pleasure and to accept the gifts that Shaitan has to offer his followers. Munir awoke from the ritual in his bed and watched in curiosity as the strange woman was hauled off by papal bodyguards to be taken to the Pope's very own prison? He didn't think that the Papal States had an extradition treaty with the Arabic Caliphate, but the thought passed quickly. Munir had finally found acceptance, a family that could accept him for who he is. Eager to prove his commitment and make some friends, our protagonist set out to engage in some good old-fashioned family fun. He and his acquaintance visited a family and played a friendly game of charades, with Taliba impersonating the husband's late wife. Despite dinner smelling suspiciously like human flesh, Munir was happy to have finally fulfilled his ambition of making a friend, someone who could accept him for who he was. Before long, Munir's loyalty to the cult of Satan led him to becoming a reliable asset. Eager to obtain the infernal powers required to cure his manhood, he set off on an increasingly deplorable acts of satanic ritual. The high priest himself began to rely on Munir, tasking him to secure and provision a supply of dwarves. Unfaltering in his commitment, our protagonist happily kidnapped and boiled alive a 4-year-old dwarf for the cause. Munir was having so much fun that he started looking forward to going to the mosque on Sunday, where he and his friends would engage in community service and redecorate the interior. Finally, his commitment paid off. At the age of 39, our hero was promoted to satanic priest. While the dark side of the Force has many powers some might consider unnatural, Munir now had the ability to cure his affliction. For the first time in his life, he set out to regrow the emptiness that mocked him and prevented him from having a family of his own. The process, however, was anything but easy. Munir tried in vain to invoke Shaitan to heal his wound twice, to no effect. His friends wanted to cheer him up and invited him to watch one of their planned extracurricular activities. Even though there was a dwarf in the orgy, Munir's sadness clouded his own enjoyment of the event. On the threshold of desperation, Munir tried his dark magic one last time. A miracle emerged. His sword was returned to him. The process worked. At the age of 42, our hero was no longer a eunuch. Satan himself has gifted Munir a new lease on life, a lease that the Emir was more than ready to embrace. Carpe diem! It was time to seize the day, and seize some wives. Cured of his eternal affliction, Munir embarked on a quest to spread his unholy seed as much and as far as humanly possible. After spending 42 years of his life as an unsexed eunuch, Munir was eager to test out his ill-begotten satanic saber. With only one primary wife and 3 secondary wives in his harem, the Emir began to devote his life to the art of seducing as many maidens as physically possible. He needed an heir, a son to inherit his kingdom, and he would stop at nothing and no one to obtain the family he never thought he could have. Married women were not off limits, nor an obstacle to his lustful loins. After all, just because there's a goalkeeper doesn't mean he couldn't try and score. He began to stalk the caliph's wife, the beautiful and youthful Empress Khandan, and spent his nights waiting patiently for her in the palace, waiting for her to go downstairs and snack on forbidden fruit. The caliph suspected nothing, even paying our hero a fortune for providing private lessons to his wife. But despite Munir's noble intentions, he was unable to cuck the caliph and inseminate the matriarch of the realm. Fortunately, all was not lost. One of Munir's secondary wives, an Ethiopian by the name of Adonech, became pregnant with child. The Emir was ecstatic in happiness, and immediately sent a messenger owl to his friends to relay the good news. In celebration, Munir's Slytherin friends hosted an unholy orgy, and he was quick to partake in the festivities. Over the course of the night, however, everything was about to change, for the Emir of Galilee discovered that he was gay. A new pattern emerged for our unholy protagonist. Stalking women was soon replaced by the hunt for the most virile and fertile of men. He spent his days courting and sword-fighting the most nubile of dandies, giving his soul to Iblis in a steady stream of exponential debauchery. Before long, Satan himself blessed Munir with his firstborn child, a son. In devotion to the deity that granted him his fruit of the loom, the Emir and satanic priest christened his boy as Judas, first of his name. Years were spent in hedonistic homoeroticism, and Munir became increasingly complacent with his lot in life. After all, he has an heir to the dynasty, along with a healthy newborn bargaining chip. Just as things started to become mundane and life slipped into mediocrity, Munir was invited to yet another satanic orgy. In a slip of fate, Munir's favorite gigolo Jamil died in a puff of smoke, and the emir vowed to put down the skin flute, this time for good. Although no longer gay, Munir's health would soon take a turn for the worse. The emir's usage of dark magic corrupted his mind and body, deforming him into a hunchback. Despite his abhorrent disfigurement, Munir quickly set out on seducing as many women and cucking as many husbands as possible within a 150-kilometer radius of his domain. He was wroth to overcompensate for his regained virility, and sired child after child, pumping and dumping dozens of married maidens and spawning bastard after bastard after bastard. Our procreative protagonist quickly mastered the art of the deal, cucking one count so hard that all of his wives were in fact Munir's lovers. Supplying an ever-increasing quantity of al-Muzaffar offspring the miserable man would have to take care for as his own. By the mature age of 59, Munir was having so much sex that he fell into a deep depression. Although impregnating an average of 8 women per year, the former eunuch could simply not satiate his desire to repopulate the caliphate in his own image. After half a decade spent in deviant decadence, a messenger arrived at the gates of the emir, the harbinger of bad news. He told of a sweeping plague spreading across the land, and begged his lustful liege to slam close the gates of the royal palace, if only to protect Munir and his loyal court. Rather than abandon his promiscuous proclivities, though, the emir purchased dozens of noblewomen and some noblemen in a rush of urgency. With his court and, more importantly, his harem secured, Munir ordered the closure of the gates of the royal palace. For the next 4 years, Munir and the nobles of Galilee were to remain in seclusion, but no one could possibly predict the trials that awaited behind closed doors. In the beginning, life continued much as it had previously. Munir, by now a man of advanced years and increasingly creepier demeanor, continued his hunt for the Fountain of Youth in the only way he knew possible. Reports soon emerged of hidden tunnels below the castle, and the emir was quick to send out a scouting party. On the return, they informed Munir that, although the tunnels were sealed, 2 men were found exposed and in the throngs of Iblis. Recollecting his own memories of heteroflexibility and fondness, Munir decreed that the 2 men should be married, husband and wife. The court and the emir's ever-increasing lineage dined on roasted quail, boar's head, and truffles, but supplies, and particularly meat, could not last forever. One afternoon, Munir chanced upon a dignitary picking out on the last supplies of venison, and decided that enough was enough. Meat was back on the menu, and no one asked where it came from. Even the count's wife was not immune to this decree, and when Munir spotted her eating away the last of the poor man's remains, he had her cooked alive to provide food for his court and 15 children. One daughter, Julia, disapproved of the bodily consumption of her mother, and asked Munir permission to leave the court. After the emir refused, Julia decided to not attend the dinner her mother helped cook, and ran away from the castle and her father, to never be heard from again. After 4 years in seclusion, the court finally convinced their cannibalistic count to open the gates, promising him that the consumption had faded and that he would have more seduction opportunities abroad, given that all of the women in court were already pregnant with his child. By now little more than a haggard and crippled old man, Munir tried his best to keep up the pace of his debauchery, but it was to no use. He used his last remaining strength to marry an 18-year-old maiden, hoping it would restore his youth. But his heart ended up failing him. In the year of our Lord, 1917, our accomplished protagonist drew his last breath and died from depression at the age of 72. Munir left behind 14 officially acknowledged children from his 4 polygamous wives, but was rumored to have sired at least 30 other children across the realm during his short and sweet period of fertility. Munir's firstborn Ethiopian heir, Judas, ascended to the throne and vowed to continue the progress and policies of his late father. I'm not sure if there's a moral to this depraved and wicked story. Just because you are clipped doesn't mean you can't fly. We've reached the end of the video, and I'd like to thank everyone for watching. This video was a bit atypical of my usual content, so if you enjoyed it, please let me know and I can make other silly videos in the future. A special shout out goes to my patrons on Patreon that support the channel on a regular basis. What silly videos would you like to see in the future? Let me know in the comment box below. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.